Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner.
Hey, hello, everybody. Can you believe it? We're in the studio again. I wish Gary Vaslash was here. He's out traveling. He'll be back with us next week. But I've got two really good people to talk about things today. We're going to be talking about electric pickup trucks and what the heck is going to happen with that market segment. We've got Warren Brown from RFQ Insights, Lindsay Brook, longtime colleague of mine, formerly with SAE Engineering. And Warren, we need to get into a little bit of your background. You were at General Motors a long time. I knew you when you were at Ward's.
Yeah.
And now you're doing your own forecasting.
Teaching and doing my own stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And Lindsay, you spent a long time covering this auto industry.
Yeah, 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. Almost as long as you.
Almost as long as me. That's right. I've been at it. So Warren, we had you on the show here, I don't know, pre-COVID. No. It was during COVID
time.
Because we were doing it all virtually. And you had your forecast as to what you thought was going to happen with electric pickups in terms of sales. And I thought, man, this guy is so pessimistic. His numbers are so low. And now they're starting to look like you were spot on. You really don't see these electric pickups selling in mass numbers, do you?
Well, no, I don't see them that way for quite a bit of time. You know, just a number of reasons. Forget about the range issue or the recharge time issue. They need to solve the value proposition for customers. I mean, full-size pickup customers, if you really take a look at them, they're rural or they're conservative or they're both, right? And so they're mainstream household people that are out there buying pickup trucks. You know, forget about the fleet thing for a while. So until they get the value proposition down to the point where two things happen. One, the companies are making money. And two, the price is something that the customer says, hey, that's a value to me. And those two things don't exist. I thought that they weren't going to exist for a long time. So that's why I wouldn't say pessimistic. I was a little more conservative than most out there.
Well, now it's turning out realistic. Lindsay, you said you were just recently out in rural America. Tell that story.
Yeah, since the end of May, I've done a lot of traveling. And in that traveling, I've been doing a lot of traveling in rural America. Central Pennsylvania, Lancaster County.
Amish country,
corn area. 2 weeks ago, I was out in very western Iowa, about an hour from Omaha. And I was at a friend's business. He has an open house every fall. He invited me out there and had people from western Nebraska, all over Iowa, and southern South Dakota. And as soon as I'm introduced to people, it's, Lindsay worked in the auto industry, the car topic comes up. And very quickly, electric vehicles come up. It was a great opportunity just in a casual way to ask people what they thought. And these were they were farmers, and my friend, aside from having a business, farms 1,000 acres of soybeans and corn. So farmers, small business people, tradespeople, there were some engineers there, just kind of like the meat of regular people there. And I concluded in their opinions about electric vehicles, and we got into electric trucks because a lot of them drove pickups there. It's something that they didn't ask for. Aside from the things that Warren mentioned, which is all the things we talk about being in Detroit, range, recharge time, our battery costs going down. We get into the weeds around here, but these are just people saying, and as soon as I got to mid-central Iowa, I was paying about $2.85 to $2.70 a gallon, the farther west I went.
So not very expensive gas.
And that wasn't ethanol gas, because the pumps have like a million different choices. There's ethanol, there's pure E85, but this is just gasoline. Driving my Ford Maverick hybrid out there, which typically gives me about 500 miles of range. And I was towing a trailer. Around here, it gets 45 miles a gallon. Towing a trailer, it still gets 28 miles a gallon. So I'm sure we'll talk about hybrids here, but that just sets the stage. So talking to these people, they're looking at what the diesel engine does for them if they're farmers, what gas engines and diesels have done for them in their pickup trucks. And the price of gas still is not prohibitive. So the question is why do I need an electric truck? Now, I posed it to one guy who said he was looking into solar for his farm. And he said, if I had battery storage for the solar array and I could charge things, implements with the batteries, an electric pickup at some point might make sense. It might make sense. And then I mentioned Lightning with all the plugins and you can power your house and all this jazz. And he says, what does that truck go for? It's $75,000. And then we started to talk about Tesla, which I'm sure we're going to talk about too.
Tesla, for sure.
Yeah, and so they think this thing is just something from complete fantasy land. And a friend says, if I needed something to attract attention in my little town, he says, I just get a King Ranch F-150 and spend 85 grand and have the nicest interior that anybody's got. I don't need a visual status symbol, so to speak. So that's in a nutshell is just this unscientific kind of traveling that I did when the topic of cars comes up and then electric cars come up. And I thought these people had some pretty good points.
No, they hit you with the value proposition.
Yeah.
Imagine somebody walking into a Ford store or a Chevrolet store, and seeing a Silverado EV and a regular Silverado, which will probably have a lot more of them on the lot to pick their choice of color and their choice of options. That's not going to go away. Okay. And then having the salesman try to explain that value proposition for the EV, and the wife or husband going, well, what's the gas version run for? Well, man, that's $20,000 less.
Right.
And so that's why I mentioned to you, two things have to happen, and it's going to take a while. And now I think manufacturers are realizing it's going to take a while. They have to get their costs down to where they're making money. Otherwise, why push the accelerator down? We're losing a whole bunch of money on these things. Tell me again why we need to push the accelerator down. And I think they've come to that conclusion, at least here in the near term. And the second is the value proposition. Customers got to feel that whatever it is, I'm going to spend my second largest expenditure that I'm going to do other than my house. I need value. It's not there. It's not there yet.
And I think it goes beyond, we're here in Detroit and, you and I have covered this since its inception, since the ideas, and we're hearing about the role of megacities and how that causes pollution worldwide and CO2 impact and so forth. None of these guys I talk to mention tailpipe emissions and zero emissions and wanting to be green at all. They live in green. They live in cornfields. They've got all of these different economic pressures of, seed prices and weather and the price of their combine and the repair prices of all the machines that they've got. And maybe some of them are, but they're not thinking, I want to be green with my truck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it gets back to what you're saying. I mean, these trucks for the farmers, the work people, it's a tool. It's not something to express your personality or something like that. Well, maybe it is. But it
can still be damn nice if you get the fully loaded one.
Sure, sure, absolutely. But first comes, it's got to work as a tool, and then it can have all the nice stuff that goes along with it.
Since the companies have been making them, though, the interiors are today
fantastic,
are out of this world. But you'd have to step back from them and look at them and say the styling on a pickup truck is conservative. It's got a box on it, which makes it even more conservative, whether it has 2 doors or 4 doors. So I think that's why I'm saying they're either rural, your point, Lindsay, or conservative, or both.
So what happens to these car companies? I think we're talking really, Ford, Chevrolet / GMC, and Ram, right? So Ford's building this monstrous new. It's essentially like a new Rouge plant down in Tennessee. I think
Blue Oval. Yeah.
Blue Oval City, I think they're calling it, right? What's the capacity going in there? 300,000?
Yeah, I would say that. That's a good number.
Warren, what the hell's going to happen? 300,000? And that plant goes live the end of 2026, I think. I think the first units start rolling off the line then.
Sure. Let's do the good things. The very fact that Ford and what General Motors will ultimately do with Orion.
So just so the viewers know, Orion has been building the Chevrolet Bolt.
Correct.
And it's supposed to start building Silverado. It was supposed to start building Silverados next year,
yes.
but they've pushed that back, 2 years now?
Right, but the reason that I'm making the comparison on those two plants is one of the ways they can get the cost down is to optimize the overall layout of the facility that's only going to make electric vehicles. They don't have a mix of stuff going on in the plant. That means their material stores, their body shop, the paint shop, the whole thing can be optimized, including labor, optimized for electric vehicles. So that's why they did Blue Oval. That's why General Motors did Orion. That's why, in theory, Chrysler or Stellantis is going to do Belvedere, right? Optimization of the manufacturing process. To answer your question on, they're going to put more than just pickups in there.
Okay.
I mean,
because you're saying there's no way they're going to
there's no
sell
way
300,000 electric pickups a year, not in this decade.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, my number's a third of that. And that would be a good number.
100,000 a year.
Correct.
This decade.
Yes.
Later in this decade.
Well, 27, 28.
Yeah. Can you make money at 100,000 a year?
Amortizing Blue Oval, no.
Yeah.
But they're doing this stuff in a way that says, and I've maintained a couple of times, how do you get to the transition? You can't get to the transition by not having excess capacity. Otherwise, you actually never get to the transition.
So you
right?
have to have overcapacity now.
I think so. But as you move those products into that, there's only so much production in North America. It's not like this is going to be a whole new set of production of pickup trucks or SUVs. I think they'll put an SUV in Blue Oval as well. But imagine now moving all of that demand into optimized battery electric plants. That's not new volume. That's a substitute of the ICE volume that exists today. Something's going to have to happen to those plants in terms of how they transform, etc. So Blue Oval is not going to just make pickup.
Yeah, but I'll tell you how those old plants are going to transform. They're going to close down. You can't run those things at half capacity, right?
I can't.
I
can't argue that.
Yeah.
But how long is the transition? That's, everybody was saying, Biden administration 2030. And all these other kind of, global, regional, et cetera, no more combustion engines, no more combustion engines. We set it at 2030. It seemed like GM and Ford they make their business plans according to that 2030. Do you reckon it's going to be extended and that they will need ICE production and models depending on how long this goes?
Look, I believe the overall transition will last to 2040.
Yeah.
Okay. It would be a strategic error if any one of the leaders of the Detroit Three said, well, we have to meet the Biden administration vision. So therefore we're going to do all of this. No, when the doors are closed, what those three executives say is, we need to make money to fund this stuff. Keep selling pickups, ICE, keep selling Suburbans and Expeditions, okay? Keep selling Ram pickup trucks because we got to fund it.
Right.
We got to keep it there.
Right.
So who was the guy who ran North America GM for a little while? Steve Carlisle says, it's kind of like a dance. It's going to be a dance. It's going to be a little bit of this. It's going to be a little bit of movement. And I think that many, including the administration, painted a picture that was just unrealistic.
Absolutely.
Well, to me, it was a stretch goal all along. If you say, well, we want 20% EV sales in 2030, you're not going to get to 20%. But if you say, we want 50% by 2030, maybe you get to 30%. So I always looked at this as a stretch goal.
Fair enough.
And that's been my number all along. And I'm just pulling it out of thin air. I'm not doing any great analysis. But I believe by 2030, probably 1 out of 3 vehicles sold in the U.S. market will be
It's
electric.
not unrealistic. No, I mean that's a good number.
And if you look at the proposed emission regs that were just published a few months ago, 2027 out to 2035, I think, is the next round. That's EPA's estimate too, is I think about 30% market by then. I still think that's pretty optimistic.
Really?
I really do, unless, look at these transitions in the past. The only way people have kind of given up one thing and gotten another was if the first thing, there's no more of them, whether it's leaded gas or all the things that we've gone through, in the last 25, 30 years. You have to get rid of that because people will still keep using it. And like I said, if gas is still, I paid $3.07 this morning. Why would I give up my truck for anything? I mean, that's still very affordable. And it gets to this mindset of convincing someone that I need an electric pickup truck. Aside from regulation, everything else, it's just, there isn't reason beyond a mandate that you're not going to have that anymore. And I think, talking about hybrids,
or will penalize you if you do,
if
including the manufacturer.
And it looked like Ford, I think, yesterday came out and said, we're just going to eat the fine for this. We're not going to.
They did.
Yeah, we're not going to disrupt.
I've been telling my clients that privately, so it's in
right.
They'll just eat it. They're not going.
We're not going to disrupt all the ground we've laid for EVs. We're not going to disrupt that. We'll just eat this fine. But it's just yet another X billions of dollars that they're going to have to eat for this.
Well, the thing I keep pointing out is there's really only one electric pickup that you can buy right now. Well, 2, right? Rivian and Ford Lightning, right? And the Rivian's really expensive truck. $93,000. I'm not even sure they're making any money on it at that. The Lightning was a rush job to take a nice product, stuff it full of batteries, and get it out there. I thought they did a really good job with that.
Really good job.
But we're not going to see real electric trucks until Chevy ever figures out how to build the Silverado in volume and the next generation of F-150. I think the next generation F-150 especially, even Doug Field, who runs all their electric car stuff, electric vehicle stuff, told me it's still not going to be a completely clean sheet truck. The real clean sheet doesn't hit the market until about 2028 or something like that. So my thinking is, don't judge what's going on with electric pickups right now with what's in the market right now, because it's still not the industry's best foot forward.
I agree with that. That's the second half of the optimization, other than the manufacturing. I think the Silverado is a adaptation of the Avalanche that they made in Mexico, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's get to market. As long as it works, that's great. But the real one, on top of the manufacturing optimization that I talked about, is the vehicle optimization. So those two things combined, I think that there's been a number of studies that say you can take 10 grand out of each product if you optimize the plant and if you optimize the product. That's going to solve their profit issue, but it'll take a while. It'll take a while. I think the only other thing I'd want to mention here is people forget it's not just half-ton pickup trucks in the market that are doing a job, either for the rural folks that you visited or any place that you go. I'll pick on Ford. They have an F-250 that's marvelous. Chevy has the same thing. They have a 350 that gets adapted to a whole bunch of different configurations, right? Those are real work trucks.
Yeah.
And those are 35 to 40% of the market.
Yeah. They're not going electric anytime soon.
Right.
I mean, even General Motors, which at one point said we're going to go all electric by 2035, except for our heavy duty trucks.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality.
Right. But at what point, I mean, so we have this optimized thing that's just this general skateboard with a motor on one end, maybe motors on both ends, a flat battery pack, all very structural, very stiff, low center of gravity. And it's kind of what is in my mind for what all of this is going to be at some point. I mean, trucks might be a little bit different. We saw some news recently with Hyundai kind of being able to get CV joints out of the way and put these little kind of gear trains in the wheels. Really interesting stuff. There'll be some modifications to that that basic skateboard. But it seems to me the skateboard's going to be for SUVs. It's ultimately going to be for pickup trucks. They'll have to figure out a way for those F-250s through 450s to swap bodies out and make chassis cabs and so forth. But that's that. Again, how do they get the cost down that we started talking about in this? Because when all of this was proposed, it was Silverado. The work Silverado was going to come in, I think, at 39 grand. Well, that's goodbye. The Lightning was going to be whatever.
About the same.
About the same.
Right.
That's gone by. Battery costs are coming down, but at no point is there going to be like just a sea change of pricing that says, now we're going to be back in the $30,000, $40,000 range. We've already we're off to the races with pricing.
I'll give you the counter argument to that. Imagine you're sitting in a boardroom. Okay. Purchasing comes in and manufacturing comes in and says to the CEO, we've just figured out how to take 10 grand out of the cost of this thing. Do you think the first thing the CEO says is, why don't we just give it all back to the market then?
I know. I wasn't saying that, but the
all
reality
of this money,
right? Right.
Let's just give it back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the
Sure.
dilemma.
Right. And at the same time, we remember that period where, 2008, where everything collapsed because there were these ridiculous, 8-year loans and so forth. Well, people's pay it's not kept pace with that. From 39,000, now these things are 59,000. And by the time these things hit volume, like you say, 2026, 2027, they might be another 10 grand more, something like that. So again, we're heading towards $100,000 for a pretty regularly equipped vehicle, I think, pretty quickly.
I hope not.
No, it's one thing to sell the innovative crowd. Yeah, that's great. Okay. And Lightning was selling to the innovative crowd that got out there, and you got to, like you said, got to give them credit for that. But the North American market production, 16 to 17 million units. 1.3 million of that's in Mexico. What are you going to sell to the Mexican value proposition?
It's a good point. Yeah.
Okay. The data that I look at says the Chinese are slowly figuring that out in Mexico.
That's right.
Okay. So it cost, value proposition. If the government was here, I'd just preach those two things, that you have to measure and metric both of those.
Yeah, I think the problem that the industry got into is the government mandates, and everyone said, okay, we're going to try to hit 50% market share EV by 2030. But if you go back just a year ago, I mean, the EV segment was red hot. I mean, it just people were falling all over themselves trying to get Lightnings.
Yeah.
Rivian couldn't keep up with production. Well, they couldn't produce. I mean, but they had a lot more buyers.
Correct.
And now here we are a year later. All the early intenders, the innovators have come in, got their product. And, that was one thing that Ford was bragging about. My gosh, all these people buying Lightnings, they're not pickup buyers. In fact, they're not even Ford buyers. We're getting all these people coming into the segment that have never been there before. And so they plan to double production at Michigan Truck or Dearborn Truck, and then triple production at. And now, all of a sudden, things have slowed way down. What the hell do they do?
Yeah.
Take it slow. I think from the ICE side of the business, they've learned that they don't have to really deep discount stuff. They can get a more rational order bank by not having 70 days of supply on the dealer's lots for some vehicles, etc. So I think a number of different things have changed, that they're going to have to make money on the ICE vehicles. Those will be around. Those will probably be less discounted, even the pickup, than they were before, because whatever loss they were taking, that loss has been magnified now. And that's why I'm just saying the thing has been stretched out. And you know what? If you're a marketing person or a salesperson, you go, okay, then we'll just deliver what the customer wants. And we'll do that Steve Carlisle dance, determining exactly where the market's gonna go versus, oh no, you have to be all electric by 2035. Well, that's not on the, God didn't hand that down on a tablet somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to satisfy the customer demand. And there's three things that have gotten worse since all those vision statements were put into play. Three major things on the cost side. The first one is on the material cost side in making batteries in the United States versus making them in a low-cost country and providing a certain quantity of materials that must come from the United States, including labor. I would submit that the business case didn't have that little increment of material cost in its approach. Two, Detroit 3 have just signed a UAW contract that maybe wasn't as generous as the original business case assumed. That's two. And three, when they wrote that business case, they didn't think those CO2 emissions and EPA regulations were going to be that stringent in saying you're going to have 60%, 67% of your production. So take yourself back 4 years, probably when the business cases were being developed. They had an early view of what Tesla was doing. We got to be there. Great. But I'd submit I'd love to go back and look at those business cases because I used to do those. I'd love to go back and see what the assumptions were, and those three things have fundamentally changed on the cost side.
Yeah. And you think because just you assume that pickups are the biggest market chunk over here, and Americans love them, and now Americans really don't care what's under the hood. They look at a torque number, maybe they look at a couple other utility numbers. Can I tow with it? How much? Can I haul with it? How much? But pretty much, if it's got the same amount of grunt with an electric motor, they're going to love this. Of course they're going to love it. And we can sell cost of ownership as an advantage, which a lot of people now really don't think of, but now this is becoming a big deal. We can sell simplicity, we can sell the battery lasting for however long. I mean, there's certain things that it's just kind of, we're going to jump off of ICE, super popular product, and jump right into battery.
Lindsay, it'll be a dance.
Snap the fingers.
It'll be a dance.
Snap the fingers.
And let's talk about more of the dance after the break. We've got to take a quick commercial break. Hey, for you viewers out there too, I think Tesla is unveiling, not unveiling, they're delivering their first retail units of the Cybertruck. Has Tesla announced the price of that? If they have, put it in the chat room. We'll get that number, but we'd love to hear from you guys. But for right now, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors.
How do Bridgestone tires stop shorter on wet roads? It's their HydroTrack technology. But you don't have to know how the science works, just where the brake is.
Then
What really matters is they're Bridgestone.
right.
Okay.
No, you're so good. You got about 20 seconds.
You think of those four things.
Well, and that was going to be 39 grand too, right? Pretty much the start, so it's going to be interesting to see.
The magic.
So tell us the number if anyone comes out with a chart.
Nothing yet.
Okay.
Isn't this the 7th launch party?
Right.
That's too cynical.
Yeah.
Just 5 more seconds here.
All right, we're back talking all about the electric pickup segment and what's going on there. And Lindsay, you raised hybrids earlier. Is that where the market's going to go? What do you think? And you've got a hybrid Maverick.
Yeah, I've got a hybrid Maverick. Toyota's kind of, reconfigured the Prius. They're selling like crazy.
Well, no, the new Tacoma, they just completely redid that, and there's a hybrid option
There's
on
a
that.
hybrid option.
They've got a hybrid option on
The Tundra?
The Tundra full size.
Right. And I thought when GM announced nothing but EVs. I mean, from this point on, we're going to let the ICEs play out. Everything forward is EVs. All the new stuff is EV. No hybrid, of course. Then they snuck in the Corvette. But
that's a performance. That's not a fuel economy play.
But nonetheless, they pledged no hybrids. Mark Royce told me, Lindsay, this is like the classic 2 drivetrains. We can't make any money. Well, GM can't make any money. But I've got to tell you, Toyota's making money on these things. So GM missed that. I thought this is a big miss if this transition takes a lot longer, and the truck segment being maybe the sticking point that we might need hybrids. The hybrid might be the big choice for trucks versus an all EV play. So that's what I wonder right now, is will there be more of them? I mean, Stellantis is kind of stuck with the XEs, Ram XE. It's a fairly mild hybrid system, but nonetheless, it's doing the job for them.
Yeah, I think that that showroom dilemma that I talked about, the salesman talking about moving somebody into a BEV, the hybrid sits in the middle of that, okay? And I always felt that, I can think now Akio's probably sitting in Japan sipping sake, saying, I told us so. But the hybrid is a nice alternative. The new Ram that's coming out with that hybrid alternative and the extended range is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But the point is, it is a cost burden for the manufacturer. But it's also a consumer relief for the customer in the showroom that doesn't want to go all the way. Your experience is what I'm hearing for the people that have bought RAV4 hybrids. They love them.
Yeah.
And so I think that Ford and Stellantis had a better strategy. Toyota obviously was always out there. Don't think for a moment they're not working on battery electric.
They are. They are.
Sure.
Yeah. They're trying to copy Tesla as much as they can. Right? Yeah.
But they were way out there. But I think, based upon, I don't know how many people have seen it, you know, General Motors did issue a short release to the news 2 days ago, saying that they were now officially studying hybrids.
Well, I'll tell you, I talked to a source.
Now, I know after working 40 years in the business, that's code for somebody down in engineering is making one.
They got a crash program going. Yeah. But see, a source at GM pointed out that they've been developing hybrids for South America, because they know South America is not going to go electric anytime soon. Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Chile. So I don't know what hybrid powertrains they've been working on for that, but you know, they sell a lot of trucks in Brazil, a lot of pickups in Brazil and Argentina.
Brought the first new ones down there myself.
So I would love to know what powertrains they've been developing for South America, because it seems to me that's going to go very quickly into their North American product if it's the right powertrain.
It could. I failed to mention when I was sitting there. When I was sitting at the Ford dealer locally here, as he was doing all the paperwork and waiting for things to be faxed in and sitting there, and a call came in. And so at that point, they were rolling their F-150 that would be in the showroom for almost a year as here's our showcase vehicle. They're rolling it in. A call comes in, and it's a customer. And the showroom's empty. There's a Mustang GT, and they're rolling this Lightning in. And I'm buying a Maverick hybrid. And he says, no. Yeah, they're rolling one in right here. You can come over and look at it. You don't want this truck. And here's why you don't want it, and you're going to be unsatisfied with this teething process that you're going to have to go through of, finding charging, and we're going to have all that stuff, but you're not ready for it. You must have known this guy. So he talked.
Hopefully he knew the guy. Hopefully he knew the guy, because
right.
I'm telling you, I think dealers are a big problem when it comes to selling electric vehicles.
I agree.
I personally know three people. One wanted a Hummer, one wanted a Lyric, one wanted a Bolt. All GM products.
They were talked out of them?
And they were talked out of them. They were talked out of them.
Right.
And these are people like, no, I know all the problems. I want that vehicle.
Right.
I know one guy who, 2 dealers would not help him get a Chevy Bolt. He finally said, screw it, and he bought a Tesla Model 3.
Really?
Yes.
They lost the sale.
And they lost a sale.
Right.
So I hope this dealer knew the customer and said, hey, Joe, you're not going to like this one.
Yeah,
and knew what he was talking
He didn't have
about.
to introduce himself. I could tell he knew the guy, but I mean, that's just one, he knew this guy wasn't ready for this. And maybe that's the early adopter, which is pretty much ready for a lot of disruption and kind of discovery when you buy a new product, you know, whatever it is, versus somebody that is just, hey, I just want the new version. It's every 3 years I buy a new truck. I want the new one.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we go back 20 years ago. Dealers were talking people out of buying hybrids.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a much easier sell now.
Sure, now.
I think that.
You know how you sell more hybrids? Don't call them hybrids. Just say, oh yeah,
It's
that
50
one
miles
gets
to the
50
gallon.
miles to the gallon.
Right.
You want that one?
Exactly right.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
idea, actually.
Yeah.
Because, this country's so politicized. I mean, EVs have become politicized. Even hybrids have been a political statement.
Yeah.
Now they're losing that, right? Because they're becoming so ubiquitous. But I mean, up until fairly recently, if you told people you bought a hybrid, oh, well, you're one of those left-wing and greenies, right?
Yeah.
And now, pretty smart. It's a pretty smart
yeah.
decision because you can still get
Because
you're not bringing your hands
I've
over
seen
range.
people say this, they don't talk about a hybrid. Oh yeah, my car gets 40 miles to the gallon. That's how they talk around.
But isn't Toyota's doing that with the Camry? It's the standard powertrain and they're not putting any badges on it. It's
Right.
just a hybridized car.
But getting back to a point you raised, it looks to me like Toyota's getting the pricing on the hybrids. Looks to me like they're getting up to $2,000 more over a nice vehicle. And I think two grand, I'm guessing, probably covers the cost of a hybrid from a manufacturing
The
cost.
extra pieces, parts, probably, yeah. I would say, yeah. My guess would be yes.
Yeah, Ford charges extra for hybrid in the Maverick, and when I bought mine, it was the standard powertrain.
Yeah.
It's like it's $1,700 now, which probably covers that, right?
But yeah, I
Roughly.
Covers most of it.
Yeah, it covers
sure.
most of it. Yeah.
I'm not sure about all the engineering noodles that go into the vehicle and
Yeah.
make sure how it works, but I would say 2 grand or 1,700 is a good number.
Yeah.
But in many respects, some of the vehicles that I've looked at, the pricing on a hybrid is fairly close to the pricing on a V6 for a pickup truck.
Yeah.
So think about it. You can get an additional 15 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, at
And
least.
you're paying about the same price.
Just you saying that made me think, what are the residual values on hybrids, especially right now?
Yeah.
I mean, can you get a better lease price because it's I'm assuming hybrids have a certain cachet that helps the residual value. I wonder. I need to look that up.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Maybe in a higher retail fuel price environment, but like I said, paying $307, it's not like, it's not like that MOV lane in California where it's like, I gotta get one of these, I'll pay you another $5 grand for
Yeah,
it.
and plus it's probably $4.50 a gallon in California
Right,
too.
right.
So
Yeah.
there's more motivation to buy that.
Hybrids, if GM has, irrespective of what Mark told you, if GM has made that move, I think that, to me, that will take a whole lot of stress out of their dealer sales force in being able to move a mix depending upon what the customer's looking for. Right now, that decision matrix, this one or this one, is kind of wide. I mean, if you really looked at it in terms of
Right.
range and all that stuff, you could list 10 things, right? That was that hybrid. I bet you when any Chevy dealer that read that quote press release, it wasn't really a release, it was kind of a notice to the Detroit News because somebody was in there poking questions about hybrids. If I was a dealer, I'd go, when can I get them?
Yeah.
Because it was either Cox or somebody else, automotive, said the turn rate on hybrids were, 3, 4, 5 times more than.
Yeah, but remember, Toyota skews all the numbers.
Yeah, that's
so even.
Just like Tesla skews the EV numbers.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So Ram, going with this extended range EV,
Fantastic.
is that the way to do it?
I think it is. I mean, for a while, Toyota, Stellantis, as we know, didn't really have an EV strategy. At least what we knew in
front of the curtain.
In front of the curtain, right. So they're late in coming, they got criticized for it, but they had to be looking at it, okay? So now they've got that, but now they have to also sell vehicles. And, the supply chain has come in with electric motors and smaller batteries and so forth. They've engineered these things. They've got them in Jeeps, they've got them in, I think for the moment, for that transition from 2024 to 26 or 27, I think it's a smart way to go.
I'd like to see what the pricing is.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems like they're offering two kind of versions, the extended range, I don't know the exact term, and then the regular one. But think of it this way, people are saying, well, how am I gonna get to Traverse City and back on an electric vehicle? And you see them wringing their hands, range. That Ram, I could go from here to Ishpeming.
Yeah. Or Traverse and back, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And for those who don't live in Michigan listening to, we're talking long distances. We're talking, 500-mile round trip
Right.
to Traverse City.
And with
Sorry
an
to the non-Michigan.
Yeah.
And with an EV, typically you've got to stop and charge to head up to TC.
Right. And with Ram, what the real smart thing is, you can tow longer distances. You'll be able to get 300 miles of towing with this truck.
Yeah.
Stop, fill up the gas tank, and keep on
That's a
going.
good way to look at it, actually, yeah, I mean, because they use it. I just hope, I don't think the first version, like the one that they showed at the Detroit show, I think that will be their first version. I just hope that their next one is the one that they, showed the press
At
here.
CES.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was futuristic, it was really cool looking,
Yeah.
had a lot of really brilliant interior design features.
So one of the things that I tell my supplier clients is, and I use the Ram as the example. I also use the one that we're gonna talk about in a minute, Cybertruck as an example. If you're a supplier and you're quoting on a job, one of the 10 significant questions that you need to ask is, can we see the vehicle? Because if you never saw the Cybertruck, you'd maybe believe Musk's numbers on the volume, and then once you saw it, you'd maybe have a change of heart. And I use the Ram as the same example. That one at CES was a phenomenal looking vehicle. The one now is just a Ram.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where do they package the engine in that? Is that in the front or in the back?
It's
or
in the front.
It's in the
It's in the
front?
Yeah.
And it's just a generator.
Yeah, it's just a generator, right,
Yeah.
right.
And it V6, right?
That's right,
You need a lot of power to charge those batteries.
that's right.
Does the thing that they call the Ram Charger, is that only V6?
I believe
I'm not
it is.
sure.
I believe it
Okay.
is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it brings up a point. Once people start to see Cybertruck on the street, will this stretch their, vision of maybe what a little bit cooler looking truck? Does the world want and need a cool looking pickup truck? But seeing something more modern, as we know, existing vehicles, when you see something that stretches styling, it's kind of like everything else looks a little bit older. Is that a factor in this segment?
Can I take you back to your Amish visit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which they
You
would.
should have had a picture.
Yeah. I should have.
John knows where
Yeah.
I'm going here.
A Cybertruck next to a horse-drawn Amish car
There must
carriage.
have been 3 dozen. They had a part at this one swap meet that I was at, which was also a steam tractor. So the technology was from EVs back to steam tractors. But there must have been 2 dozen Amish buggies parked there, and they had water troughs. The horses were disconnected. They were over here, the buggies. So it was a great place to kind of, and these are all people that work on modern equipment. They all work on modern combines that have GPS location on them, and so they're not, it's not from the previous century, it's just that they live in the previous century.
No,
But
I
I
was
know.
talking more about, and John's heard me say this, it's a work truck, but it also goes to church on Sunday.
You bet.
Okay, it's not like they got 3 vehicles sitting in the garage. Okay, maybe somebody out in Los Angeles has 3 vehicles sitting in the garage. But for the types of people that we've been talking about, rural, conservative, or both, they take it to church on Sunday. Can you see the Cybertruck at church on Sunday?
No, but and here's my question to you guys.
Not my church.
Right. I don't think pickup buyers, traditional pickup buyers, not many of them are interested in the Cybertruck. They're not the buyers.
Yeah.
The question is, are there enough other people, early adopters, tech crowd, is there enough of them to sell the Cybertruck in volume? And remember now, Cybertruck's going to be sold all around the world, not just in the US market. Pickups are not big elsewhere in the world,
Right.
with a few exceptions. Canada, Australia,
Mideast.
Mideast, Thailand, that's about it. But what a statement to make. I mean, I can see rich people in Paris buying a Cybertruck just to drive down the Champs-Élysées.
Yeah.
So the question is there enough non-traditional pickup drive buyers to buy enough Cybertrucks for years to come? Not just in the first year. There'll be a big spike in sales, no question about it.
Yeah.
But 5 years from now, how's the Cybertruck selling?
What's the model cycle change going to be?
Never.
Yeah.
There is no cycle change.
We haven't yet seen that with
So-
Tesla.
Yeah.
If you think of the Cybertruck as a, and this is what I put into my forecast, as kind of like a coupe, new convertible kind of life cycle. Yeah, you're right. It could accelerate and peak. But then, okay, yeah, what's next? Those buyers want to make the statement, then they're gonna wanna know, what's the model change gonna be?
Well,
Yeah.
if I were Tesla, I would make a big 3-row SUV off the same platform.
You've got to do
So
something.
you have a Cybertruck, you have a Cyber SUV, you know?
But look like a Model Y, or bigger Model Y, or look like a Cybertruck of SUVs.
Well, you know, one of the
Have
weird
that
things,
wedge-shaped front end, I think, is key.
I like the front end. I think the front end looks beautiful. It's that peak on the roof that's kind of weird. Whereas if you made an SUV version and carried that out, it would eliminate the peak. I think visually it would look a whole lot better.
I think it'll be a coupe cycle.
Well, but
So,
Coupe life cycle.
2.5 years it does great, and then everything slides down.
does it fit into a number of trucks? I mean, maybe Hyundai Santa Cruz, which is contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
You hardly see them around at all.
You know, their sales are pretty good.
They're pretty good. They're
About
not,
35,000.
yeah,
I want
yeah,
to say
so-
30,000
So we
year
see
to date.
those vehicles. You could argue that first Ridgeline was kind of like that. A lot of people thought this is the
Ridgeline is outselling the Ranger right
This
now.
is the
Can
future
you
of
believe it?
pickups. I can't believe that.
Yeah,
I was trying to make a point. You just
Yeah, sorry.
never mind.
Yeah,
No, but
sorry.
just looking at the niche pickup trucks, back to Subaru, Brad, etc., that have been more of this kind of lifestyle, mountain bike, surfboard kind of truck. You know, that have had kind of, you know, glitzy paint jobs and so forth. Is this kind of the electric, a little weirder version of that? That it's going to be a kind of a niche vehicle for this market?
I don't. Do you have any sales forecasts? Do you have any numbers for Cybertruck? Where do you think it's going to come
Well,
in?
again, I have 3 versions in the forecast: the quad motor, the dual motor, and the single motor. Right. So there's 3 versions of it. When you lump them all together, now, as any good forecaster, you have to ask yourself, what's the price? I can assure you I don't have $39,000 in the price of my forecast.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I believe today, I'll go on record
Yeah.
as saying
Here it
that
is.
the dual.
The Great Karnak, you know, we should have the envelope.
The dual motor price will not be less than $52,000.
Okay.
But they're launching with dual motor. They promised a single motor. That's off.
And I promised a quad
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying 52,000, that means the quad's gonna be higher. Now, all those people that put their dollar down on buying the $39,000 option and flipping it, those are gone. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how many can they do at 52,000? 36,000.
36,000 a year?
Oh, but mine cycles now. My peak is 36,000, then it cycles now.
Wow. Wow, that's not a lot. You know, I think, I don't know why, I got some number in my head that I read someplace, 120,000 a year. You don't see anywhere near that.
I thought you said
Ford can't
200.
move that many with 3,000 dealers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough sledding here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Ford's dilemma is they have hybrids, which is the purchase alternative, which is both a sweet sauce and a sour sauce inside of a Ford dealership to move BEVs, right? It is.
Yeah.
You know, the price differential in terms of customer value is still out of whack. But no, my Ford number for just the half ton is less.
I'll challenge you on that, just
Okay.
from this standpoint. Chevy's got how many dealers? Probably about the same, right?
about
4,000?
3.
How many Bolts are they going to sell this year? 80,000? 70,000. So they can only move 70,000 with 4,000 dealers. They're nowhere near the Model 3, which is, I don't know, at least $10,000 more expensive. So I'm not sure I would use...
So you're arguing down on the Ford number?
No, I'm arguing up on the Cybertruck.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think the Cybertruck, because again, global number, global.
You do know what the transaction price after federal incentives is on the Bolt, don't you?
It's like 20 grand.
Yeah.
20 grand.
Yeah.
It's a little higher than that, but you made my
Low 20s.
point. It's
Yeah.
it's low.
Yeah.
There's a lot of household income that needs to be burned as you move from 25 to 52,000.
Well, yeah. No, I hear you.
But Musk claims that there's X number of people that have put down, I think, $100 basic. What is the value of the Tesla Mojo to this in terms of the first year's worth of production, just having that bank of people that they gotta, I mean, this should kickstart this pretty well if you believe him.
Oh, I think out of the blocks, they're not going to be able to keep up with demand.
Right.
But again, production's going to be extremely low.
Yeah.
And you've got all those people that gotta have it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's probably people selling their spot in line, that because there's going to be those, like I said, there's going to be some rich guy on the Champs-Elysees in Paris going,
36,000 of them globally.
I'll pay whatever it is.
Right.
Give it to me.
Yeah.
36,000 of them globally, yes. See,
Wow.
I got my neck stuck way out, like the price and the volume, so.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I just,
It'll be hot,
yeah.
but let's assume that it was 120. Let's just go with that. Where would they build it?
Well, Austin, Texas.
That's gonna be filled with Ys and 3s until they move.
Well, they got a separate
until-
line, I thought.
Until they move to Mexico.
Huh? Until they move to Mexico.
But Mexico, I thought, was this, what everyone's calling the Model 2, this low-cost, $25,000
And an
electric.
SUV.
And an SUV. Well, yeah, that would make sense. Absolutely. But my understanding is, not my understanding, I know, they've got a separate line just for the Cybertruck. Now, I don't know what it's tooled for or anything like that, i.e. annual capacity.
I hope they got a lot of folk putting together those 120,000 units a year. But
Yeah.
again, it's an interesting topic. I think he stuck his neck out.
Not the first time.
No, and so, he's trying to be an innovator, and you can't, I mean, the world of EVs in North America, without Elon Musk and his company, is nothing.
Just, it almost wouldn't exist.
Wait, one sec. Sean's waving to me off camera. You got any number or anything like that for the Cybertruck?
No,
Okay.
our audio there's an issue with the audio.
Okay.
So I was just gonna say it might be time to wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, we'll wrap it up right now. But Warren Brown, Lindsey Brook, great discussion. Love
Great
having you
discussion.
guys on the
Thank
show.
you very
Great
much,
discussion.
John.
And we'll be back here again next week.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner.
If you like this program and would like to learn more about the automotive industry, check out our website at autoline.tv or look for us on YouTube on the Autoline channel.